Today on Monday's big question, it is January, so transfers are in the news. The big news over the weekend, as far as American soccer players, Brandon Vazquez reportedly making a $10 million move from Monterrey to the MLS. So the big question today, did Brandon Vazquez hurt his national team stock with a move to Major League Soccer?
Yeah, I guess we could talk about the price tag here first. Again, Tom Bogert is the guy that is reporting this because he's the one on top of everything. And, hey, a little tease. Tom Bogert on this show on Friday.
Oh, nice.
MLS transfers. So make sure you're here on Friday for Tommy B, Tommy Scoops, whatever we're calling him these days. The mustachioed marauder is one that I like to use. Hercules Gomez. All right, so this is off of Tom Bogert breaking Austin FC are finalizing a deal to sign U.S. men's national team forward Brandon Vazquez from CF Monterrey per sources. Fee is north of $6 million. This was Tom's original post, $6 million plus add-ons. I think maybe the add-ons will get to 10. I've seen 10 around. The price tag is certainly interesting, but it's this part I think that is our big question today, what Herc says. I hope he's getting a bag because this is the most likely going to cost him with the national team. Vazquez has a unique skill set compared to the other nines in the pool, but when everyone is healthy, he's on the outside looking in. Going back to MLS won't do him any favors. Brandon Vazquez. Okay, first of all, let's ponder what Herc is saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that premise, to be honest.
Okay, you don't agree with the premise that this hurts his national team prospects.
No, I don't think so. I don't know how. I mean, is there a long track record of players like losing their stock? Is there that much of a difference between Liga MX and MLS in the eyes of the people that it matters? In the eyes of Pochettino, is he going to be like, well, he was in Mexico, now he's in MLS, so I don't know about this guy anymore?
Well, Pochettino keeps talking about the importance of Major League Soccer, but that is just a practical approach to managing the U.S. men's national team because every national team manager knows that you can't just say, oh, you have to be playing outside the U.S. or you won't be in the national team picture because depth questions and injuries are probably going to force you to look at the pool of players that are in MLS. And I do think it's worth, you can't just make a blanket statement. Playing in a foreign league is better than playing in MLS. Because not every foreign league is better than MLS from top to bottom, or in weekly challenge or in quality. They are different, right? They are different in terms of how they play. So the Mexican league plays differently than Major League Soccer, and maybe that's a factor here. Maybe that's a thing. Hercules Gomez is a guy who played in MLS, who played in Liga MX, who covers both leagues on ESPN, who talks about the big picture of soccer in North America. He knows both leagues very well. It's pretty clear that he believes Liga MX is ahead of MLS, or at least at the top end. And Monterrey is one of the top end teams in Mexico. You can take issue with that premise. I'm not sure I do because of what Nate says. There's a difference between sitting on the bench in Mexico and playing in MLS. If anything, this is probably a good move for him. Meaning, this is the universal question when it comes to a lot of players. Do you go to a quote-unquote better league where there's more challenge, where the training intensity is likely higher, because that is something that is often said about MLS. The training intensity is not the same as if you go to Belgium, for example. Is it better to go somewhere and maybe not play as much? Now, you don't know. Like, a lot of players leave and go, I'm going to play, and then they don't. So now they're on the bench in a higher quality league, or maybe they're getting spot minutes, right? This is a Gio Reyna question that we've been talking about a lot recently, Rob. Like, should Gio Reyna leave Dortmund because he's not getting regular minutes? And now that Julian Brandt is back, well, that makes it even more difficult for him, and he's only going to be a late game substitute, and that's not good enough. And blah, blah, blah. Like, is it better for Gio Reyna to be on the bench and be a squad player at Dortmund than to be a starter in a lesser league or in a lesser club? And I think Brandon Vazquez is in a similar position. Now, Brandon Vazquez also is going to benefit financially, as Herc says. I hope he gets a bag. And I'm going to bring in another post from Blue Sky, from Andrew Wisnowski, who says, hardest question for a bubble men's national team guy like Vazquez. Never guaranteed you make the national team or even play regularly if you take the risk to go to Europe. But a paycheck isn't as great of a story to tell your grandkids than about a World Cup, right? So about if you make the national team and you go to a World Cup, what a great story you can tell. And then Andrew, being practical, says World Cup appearances don't pay for your grandkids' college tuition. And every player's conundrum, Rob. This is every player's situation. Like, do I take a risk, go to a quote unquote better league, maybe don't play as much, maybe I am in, maybe I'm not the man, right? Or do I go to a place like, do I go back to MLS in the case of Brendan Vazquez, who's had success in MLS, get a bunch of money in your pocket, set up your family, be more comfortable, culturally perhaps, I don't know, and knowing you can play well and score in that league, maybe it does ultimately benefit you for the men's national team. But again, I mean, I don't think in this case, Brandon's question of leaving Liga MX for MLS is as clear as it would be if you were leaving the Premier League for MLS or Italy for MLS or Spain. Those are different kinds of equations for players who are on the bench in top 5 leagues in Europe and are wondering if MLS might be a good place for them to be.
Yeah, those steps are not equivalent between what you're talking about with the European to come home to MLS compared Liga MX to come back to MLS. But I thought that Mike in the comments made a nice comment saying that it maybe, if anything, it's a signal of stagnation that, okay, so he went from Major League Soccer to Liga MX. So arguably, we could discuss that at length. What is Liga MX higher on the ladder,
Right.
But certainly returning to the league that you were just at 2 seasons before wouldn't be a sign of progress or growth for the player. So that's probably the inclination.
I'm not sure these things are as linear as we want them to be. I mean, that would be lovely if
Decisions and moments.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Vazquez good enough to play in Liga MX? I would argue that he is.
I mean, he played. I mean, it's not like he didn't see the field at all. I mean, in 2024-25, he's already has 31 appearances, 8 goals, and an assist. And last year, he played 19 games, scoring 6 times. So it's not like he was completely absent in Mexico.
Right. He wasn't a disaster. Right. Was he what they wanted him to be? No, probably not. I mean, he wasn't a scoring leader in Liga MX. And again, he's playing for a very ambitious team with a lot of resources in Monterrey.
Mm-hmm.
And Monterrey's just doing business. Right? They're just doing business. So, and I know there was that rumor that his contract was canceled. That Monterrey, basically, I think the implication was Monterrey has given up on Brandon Vazquez. He's not good enough. Right? That was sort of the thing that was bouncing around the internet. And it was Tom Bogert who had to come and say, no, that's not true. But there is a potential move for Brandon Vazquez in the offing. And it was Austin. And by the way, some of this is about that. It is about Austin being willing to put the money down. Because if you're a player in Brandon Vazquez's situation and nothing is guaranteed to you, your future as a player is not guaranteed. Your knee could go out tomorrow. Right? And every player is aware that their lifespan as a player is limited. If you're presented with this opportunity to get a bag of cash, right? We want to romanticize this and turn this into, oh, he'll be giving up on his national team chances. His hopes of playing in the World Cup are, I don't know why this is a British guy, but his hopes of playing in the World Cup are done. And we want to turn this into something, like, if it was me, I would do it this way. Bullshit. You don't know what you would do. You don't know what you would do if you're looking at your bank account and you're wondering, hey, can I send my kids to a great private school, to a good college? I want to do everything I can for them. Or my wife wants this kind of house. And yeah, maybe some of that is a little, not greedy, but a little bit over. Like, what's really important in your life? You want to talk about it, Rob? What's really important is family and comfort. But you don't have to be rich to be happy. But most of us presented with this opportunity to get what Brandon Vazquez is going to get out of this deal would say, yes, please, I will take that. To play in what he still believes, I'm sure, is a good league, to play in a league he knows, to be in his home country again. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be in Mexico, but if this was, hey, a team in Qatar wants to pay $10 million for you, he might not say yes to that, no matter what the money is, because he doesn't want to go to Qatar. Right, so this is like a lot of different things all mixed up, and we're kind of stripping it down and reducing it to, oh, it's going to hurt his national team chances, without really knowing. And I will say this, all right. So I'll go back to what Herc said. Vazquez has a unique skill set compared to the other 9s in the pool, but when everyone is healthy, he's on the outside looking in.
I
That
agree with
would be
that. Yeah.
true whether he is in Monterrey or Austin, right?
Yep.
That's true regardless of where he plays. Because Ricardo Pepi and Falarin Balogun and some of these other players are ahead of him. Haji Wright even. Who knows what happens if Daryl Dike is ever healthy, although Daryl Dike is not ever healthy. Please, Daryl Dike, get healthy.
I would love that. That'd be great.
We don't know. Like, he's already a fringe player. He's already a bubble player. Why would he make any decision right now when there's money on the table based on his national team prospects? That doesn't make any sense for me. Like, if I'm thinking about this as a person, as a professional, as what's best for not just me, but the people around me that I care for, that I'm responsible for, I don't even worry about the national team. If the national team is going to happen, it's going to happen. Right? I don't say, hey, well, I got to stick it out in Monterrey because, well, I won't play for the national team if I go to Austin, when you haven't been playing for the national team anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been. Yeah. He's definitely on the outside looking in, and this move probably doesn't do much one way or the other, in my opinion. And then going back to the point of, would you take another job to give you more money? Of course you would. Of course you would. Unless you're like one of the, the 1% in the footballing world or in any profession really that can choose where they go. For 99% of us, you take the opportunity.
You know who gets to say things like, "Oh, you shouldn't go for the money. You've got to go for the best competition, the best opportunity." Those are people who have already achieved, already have themselves set up because they've achieved a lot, and then they get to say from their ivory tower, "Don't chase the money." And again, we're not talking about Brandon Vazquez going to Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about Brandon Vazquez going to China. We're talking about Brandon Vazquez coming back to his home country to play in MLS, which, whatever you want to say in MLS, it is not a bad league, right? And so, again, it's like, even if MLS was the worst league you could think of, I don't know how deep you'd have to go down. It's better than Guatemala. It's better than Bolivia. It's better than, how deep in Europe do you have to go before you're like, oh, it's really bad down there? Even if MLS was in that area, if they were saying, Brandon Vazquez, here's a DP contract and we're spending $10 million to bring you back to America, it's still a very, very tough thing to say no to. Still regardless of your national team prospects or your national team ambitions or aspirations. Right? Go ahead.
One last little note on this topic before we move along. Mike Thomas, in fairness, do you agree with Mike here saying Austin probably more likely to sell to Europe than a Liga MX team? Do you think do you agree with that?
Liga MX to Europe transfers are few and far between. They do happen. They're not as sort of normalized as MLS. So I would say that, yes, in a general sense, Mike is right, that Austin and Major League Soccer are more open to this. I mean, it could be 2 years of banging in goals and Brandon Vazquez could get a chance to play in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And if the championship is, if it's a level that Brendan Aronson can make the national team from, then it's a level that Brandon Vazquez can make the national team from. Or Haji Wright's making the national team from that level. Brandon Vazquez can make the national team from that level. So none of this closes the door. I take Herc's point. Maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult for Brandon Vazquez. But again, it does not fundamentally change his place in the pecking order. It's not as though he was ahead of 3 other guys, and now because he's going to MLS, we have to demote him below those guys. He was not ahead of those guys to begin with. So what he needs to do is prove that he can consistently score goals, make it impossible for Mauricio Pochettino to ignore him, and then maybe he gets a chance to play for the national team. And the World Cup, I know, is right around the corner, and this is about that. But Brandon Vazquez is 26 years old. It doesn't mean the world ends if he doesn't play. It doesn't play in a league that can get him to the World Cup in 2026. And again, if he's scoring goals in MLS and Balogun's hurt and Haji Wright is hurt, and Haji Wright may be more of a winger now, but Josh Sargent is still hurt. Again, a guy who can make the national team from the championship level, but Josh Sargent is hurt, and Ricardo Pepi is hurt or still isn't playing. There's a chance for Brandon Vazquez. There's a chance. Go score goals in Austin. See what happens.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. We will be back on Wednesday morning here on Morning Kick Around. Camp Cupcake roster should be out by then, right?
I believe so. I believe it's going to drop today, so we're just kind of missing it via our bad timing by being a morning. How dare we be a morning show, Rob? I'm checking my inbox. Click, click, click. It's not there yet.
Nothing there yet. So we will be back on Monday. Thank you everyone for tuning in. MK Ultras,
We'll be back home.
you've done it. It is the mother of all Mondays, and we've made it in all the best moving forward. We shall see what happens this afternoon in the Super Copa Italia Maximus from Riyadh. We shall see, but thanks for tuning in, and until Wednesday, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.